Hi, this is Bob Markovich, and I want to welcome you to the Life of Leadership podcast. Today, we're going to be chatting with Mike Elder. He's the head football coach at Avon High School. Before I do that, what I want to do is I just want to make sure that I've identify my sponsors for the show. First off, BCT Alarms. BCT Alarms is a local Lorain County alarm service, security service. If you have needs at home for security, reach out to Brian Jankowski. He's the owner. I tell you, I've got one of the on my smartphone. I've got an app, and I can make sure that my doors are locked and my garage door is down. Whenever I leave the house, I could be miles away. So if that's something that you want, give Brian a call. I also want to say thank you to WOBL WDLW. WOBL is AM 1320 and 107.7 FM. It is Gold Country. That's Country Classics. And then WDLW AM 1380 and 98.9 FM. Rock and roll oldies on the Cool Cat. You can follow them on Twitter to get some local sports. It's Twitter is at WOBL WDLW Sports. Facebook is at WOBL WDLW Sports. And this Friday coming up, they are going to be broadcasting on WOBL the Wellington at Brookside basketball games. That game, that's boys, and then on WDLW Amherst versus Elyria, and Amherst and Elyria are both schools located in the conference of Coach Mike Elder. Let me give you a quick, just a little bit of a snippet about Mike. Mike's been at Avon High School for 15 years as the head football coach. His record is 160 and 28. He's won 11 conference championships. He's made the playoffs 13 times, and he's been regional champ 6 times. Mike, thanks so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Bob. I appreciate you, number one, having me on your show. This is certainly humbling for me. I think about my leadership style and who I am today, and it's because of a lot of people that I'll mention in this interview that have really impacted me in my life. So hopefully, as people listen to this, they'll be able to take something away that can benefit them down the road.
And I hope they will too. And I know they will. So let me ask you the first question I want to kick off with is what is your background prior to coming to Avon? And then you can add on to that why you chose Avon as well.
Well, I'll try to be brief, but I grew up in Warren, Ohio. I'm proud of that. I grew up on the west side of Warren, and I attended John F. Kennedy High School, where I was a 3-sport athlete, and graduated from there in 1989. Played for a guy named Dennis Zolchek, and he was a really good head football coach and very successful. And obviously Tim Johnson is a guy who went on to be a head coach who was my position coach. And those guys had a major impact on me as someone who, in my family, no one had ever gone to college. I graduated from there and decided to go off to the University of Mount Union, where I was studying to be a business major, and also got to play for a legendary coach, Larry Karras. And I had a great time at Mount Union. I actually was an All-American there and a team captain, something I'm very proud of. And then graduated after 4 years and went right to Alliance High School, where I started teaching and coaching, and had a wonderful experience there. And then before I became a head coach, I was able to go back to Mount Union and actually spend 1 year, I call it my sabbatical of sorts, coaching football at Mount Union in 1999. And it was a great learning experience for a guy who wanted to become a head coach. I had identified by that time that was something I really wanted to do in my life and take on that leadership opportunity. My first head coaching job was at Indian Valley High School in Janaden-Hutton. If you don't know where that's at, the Huggins brothers are famous for being from Indian Valley, and basketball was, a big deal down there. They have a really good football program going right now. Their current coach is doing a great job, but the people were tremendous, and I was able to kind of learn the ropes of being a head coach. And I remember applying for that job and talking to Larry Karras and saying, "Coach, I just don't think I'm ready to take this job yet." And he looked at me and said, "You're right. You're not. You're never ready. You just have to take it, and you have to be able to be reflective and learn and grow as you experience it." And so I think I did that. We won 6 games that year. They had lost 19 straight prior to getting there. So it's funny that 6-4 was something that we were very proud of at Indian Valley that year. I left there to get back closer to friends and family and took a job at Ravenna Southeast, and I was there for 1 year. We went 7-3 that year after 2 5-15 seasons. Again, I was able to grow and learn. I look back at when I was a coach at those 2 places and wish for those kids' sakes that I knew what I know now. But I'm sure 10 years from now, hopefully I'll be saying the same thing about the moment in time I am here. But I was there for a year and then left that and became the head football coach at Perry High School. And that was in Lake County, Perry. I took over for a legendary coach named Bob Ritley. Bob Ritley had a tremendous impact on me. He had resigned as head football coach and retired because he was ill. And he passed away in the year 2 of me having that job. But for 2 years, I got to pick his brain and have him around the program and learn from him. And I think that was a big piece of my growth. I never played for the man. I never coached with him. But just the way he conducted himself as he was going through such challenging times and just cared about people, I think left a lasting impact on me. And then after 5 years there, I had finished up my administrative degree. I wanted to go into being a school administrator, and I was looking for some opportunities to do that. And Avon was unique in that they offered me the opportunity to become an assistant principal at the high school, but they also were going to let me be the head football coach. And at the time, that sounded like a great idea. Looking back, it was a great idea, but it was a lot of work. And that's what brought me to Avon. In that interview process, I will say that, I wasn't looking to leave Perry. I had a great job, but Eric Frombach was the athletic director. When I got to sit down and meet him in that interview process, he certainly is somebody who struck my interest as a guy that I felt like together we could really transform our athletic culture at Avon. And he's everything that I thought he was to this day in that interview.
What kind of research did you do before you chose Avon? Obviously no regrets. I shouldn't say obviously, but I'm assuming no regrets. But what was the pressure like when you were considering it? You dotted your I's, you crossed your T's, you knew a little bit more than you did when you started at Indian Valley. So what was that process, right? So many of us have a difficult time making decisions, especially for change. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, it was a tough decision because anytime you've spent 5 years somewhere, you've got relationships and connections with coaches and players, members of the community, the teaching staff. And so it was something that, quite honestly, was really hard for me. But I felt like the time was right, and I felt like it was right because, at Perry, I had come in as a head coach. I had 2 years of experience and probably established some routines and expectations that are hard to change once you start. They tell young teachers in the classroom that first year when you're talking about classroom management, the initial month of school is very important because once you establish routines and you allow things to happen and you create expectations, it's very hard to change those. And so for 5 years, we had success at Perry. We had quite a bit of success. But there were some things that I knew as 7 years under my belt that if I could start all over, I would change some things, and there would be some non-negotiables, and there would be things that I think that would make our program grow and get even better. And, for me, the administrative piece was a huge reason for that leap of faith to leave, but also meeting Eric Frombach and knowing that I had this clearer vision of what I wanted to establish and believing wholeheartedly that he would support that was the biggest reason why I took the job.
That's awesome. So the next question that I have is about success. So I take a look at your record, and certainly you've been a successful football coach, right? You didn't point it out, but you are also part of the Varsity M Club. So you are actually in the Sports Hall of Fame at Mount Union as well, right? So how do you define success?
That's a really difficult question, but one that, for me personally, it is loving what you do and loving the people you do it with. And I know that sounds interesting, because it's not result driven, but you must love what you do. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who have jobs currently that they don't love. They love the income it gives them and the things it allows them to do maybe with their life. But you're really cooking with fire if you can get a job that you go to every single day and you love it. And in order to do that, you got to love the people you do it with. So to me, that's my version of success, is to find joy and happiness and love in what you're doing. And ironically, if you have that and you truly enjoy what you're doing and who you're doing it with, and you have a vision and you put together a plan, success is possible. If you're not all in and you're not enjoying or loving what you do, it's hard to be successful. It's not impossible, but I think it's very difficult, personally. So, the other piece of the success to me is that you are becoming the best version of yourself. And for me as a coach, we would like to win a state championship. There's no question about that. We're not going to apologize for saying that. But every year our team is going to take on a different personality and identity. And I think our coaching staff believes that success is getting them to become the best version of themselves and playing the best football by the end of the year. And some years that's good enough to win a regional championship. Some years that's good enough to get to the state finals. One year, hopefully, that'll be good enough to win the state championship. But I think we've been very successful because we've taken teams and quite honestly, we haven't underachieved. We've become the best version of ourselves, and there's growing pains along the way, but we've been able to do that.
Now, refresh my memory. I should have researched this a little bit, but I didn't know I was going to go down this path. So this year, you played Avon Lake to a close game in the regular season and lost, but you played them in the playoffs and then won. Is my memory serving me correctly?
No, I wish that was the case. We
Okay.
would love to have had a second opportunity to play them, but they lost in the first round of the playoffs, and we went on to lose in the final four. So we never did get a chance to play them again. And I will tell you that this year was challenging at Avon. We started out our season at one point we were 2-2, and that's not normal for Avon. Like I told you, at Indian Valley we were 6-4, and people were very excited to be 6-4 there. Here, when you're 2-2, you better lean on those relationships and that positive culture you have to get through those moments. And I'm proud to say that I never doubted that our players would not grow and learn from the experience. I have tremendous respect for our rivals, and they deserve to win the game on that day. Do I think they were a better team than us this year? No, but they were a better team that day, and that's really all that matters. We've gone into games where we've had to beat people that we don't think we were a better team than, but we were better on that day, and that's the beauty of sports. But after going 2-2, our team decided to roll off, 10 straight victories, 10 straight, which is quite incredible, and that kind of almost made the journey even that much better.
So this leads me to another question about success. So this is Vince Lombardi, right? You've heard this. Vince Lombardi is quoted as saying, "Winning isn't everything; it's the only thing." What is your response to that quote?
Well, I think that may be true in professional football. That's their job and that's the end game. But as a high school teacher, I pride myself on being a teacher. My staff prides themselves on being tremendous teachers. We see this as a game. Like I always tell people that football will be the most important class you take throughout your high school years. And people are like, wait a second, and what I mean by that is not to knock anything else. And academics are certainly very important. But if done right, the valuable lessons and the things that we can teach kids through the game of football will transcend the season, the record, the wins, the losses. It's the skill sets you're developing along the way that we're trying to equip young men with, and in this case this year, a young lady with, that they can carry with them the rest of their lives. And they can lean back on those experiences when they are faced with adversity or challenges in their life and say, man, I know how to respond and how to handle that because of some of the things they may have helped develop through our program. So I think you can be a successful high school football coach and go 0-10. I truly believe that. And those guys are out there. Unfortunately, their influence becomes less than maybe others who have the success on the field. So that's why we're so excited to have the success on the field, because I think our influence becomes even greater.
All right, that leads me to another question here. So Billy Graham said a coach will impact more people in 1 year than the average person will in an entire lifetime. How do you respond to a student athlete that says, "I want to do what you do"?
Yeah, there is no more powerful word than coach. There really isn't. And I think anybody who takes on any coaching role, no matter what sport it is, needs to understand that. It is a powerful word when placed in front of your name. And your impact and influence on young people grows. I'll never forget that I was at a clinic in Dallas. Coach Karras was the actual American Football Coaches Association president. So I went down to Dallas for this clinic, and I heard Coach Gundy speak and from Oklahoma State, and he was talking about his son, and his son was a seventh grader who was playing quarterback, and he coaches quarterbacks, and obviously is coaching at the highest level of college football, and he was trying to give his son some pointers, and his son said, "Hey, that's not how coach said to do it. That's not what my coach said." And he was talking about a seventh grade coach and arguing with his father on how to do it. And he said at that point in time, he recognized and realized how important the word coach is. And so the truth is you do have such an impact, and it's something that I love and I'm passionate about. So I would encourage anybody who wants to do that to do it. But I would also caution them along the way that when you put yourself in the leadership positions, specifically in football, as you last night, you watched with the Cleveland Browns not having success. And if you follow any people's comments on Twitter, people are really quick to assign blame, and they are really quick to question every decision and move you make. Doctors don't deal with that. No one goes into surgery and really tells them how to do their job, but everyone tells a football coach how to do theirs. So you have to have thick skin. You better love your players, and you better be willing to take criticism as well as the pats on the back, because they'll come. You'll get pats on the back, but you will get a lot of criticism. And for me, early on in my career, I didn't do well with criticism. I shut it out. And I think where I've grown and learned is that now when I get criticism, which comes at me all the time, I reflect on all of it. And there's sometimes then I ignore it because it's unjust and it's not fair and it's probably inaccurate. But other times people are appropriate and they're right. And you have to grow and reflect and learn from that. So you better have thick skin, and you better be willing to always reflect and try to grow and get better in this profession.
How long do you think it took you to learn that, when criticism comes, you have a couple options. One, you can get angry, you can ignore it, or you can assess. So how long did it take you to learn that lesson?
It took me a while. I was a bulldog, and I still am in some ways. And we did a 360 evaluation as administrators here in Avon, and that's difficult. Now, I don't know if you've ever done one of those, Bob, but they come in and they ask you a lot of questions about yourself, your leadership styles, have conversations like you and I are having now, and then they give you feedback. And I got a lot of positive feedback in that, but also some of it was that I needed to be more open to becoming a better listener. And a lot of times my leadership style early on was more of a bulldog. Hey, here's what we need to do. Here's how we're going to go get it. Here's what we're going to do. And now I think probably 7-8 years ago, when I really stopped and started listening to others more, when I started to become more collaborative and allowing people and empowering others to do things and then supporting them through that, not only did we become more successful, but I became happier in my leadership style and role. So this was a work in progress, and it's all about trial and error. And I had a lot of success along the way, yet I changed how I lead, in my opinion, and it's really been healthy for me personally, and I think healthier for all the people surrounding me as well.
So you've touched on this a little bit, but I'm going to ask you the question to drill down, be a little bit more specific. What is your leadership style?
Well, I think the number one thing for me is I'm a big goal setter and a visionary. I every year sit down and create personal goals and team goals. And when I create those team goals, I do it with our leaders. I do it with our seniors. I do it with our coaches. I meet after every season with our coaches, and we talk about what went well and what we're proud of. And then we get very critical of what we do and what we can grow and get better from. And then I want to talk to our players, and then we set goals from that. And then you empower your people. Like, I am not a micromanager. I probably was at one point when I first became a coach. I did the offensive game planning, defensive game planning, the special teams. I ran the weight room. I did it all. And now what I've done is, and I've learned, any great leader surrounds himself with really good people. And then you empower those folks and hold them accountable. And in order to hold someone accountable after you've empowered them, you have to have trust. And so you have to work hard to establish trust with your team, with your coaches, and everyone surrounding you. And then after that, once you have that accountability, you have to be very reflective and always learn to grow. We could say, hey, we're pretty good at Avon and football and just try to duplicate what we did this year, but that's not how we'll do it. Our coaches and our players would not allow that. We're going to be reflective, and we're going to really dig in and figure out what we can do better. And we're going to continue to make this a program that grows every year and does things better.
So how do you hold others accountable? So as the leader, as the person in charge, you've got relationships to the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, the assistants, the players. How do you hold them accountable? I see in my work, I coach a lot of businesses, I coach a lot of individuals, and it's as if nobody knows how to hold people accountable anymore. So specifically, how do you hold your staff, your players accountable?
Well, I think there's a few ways to do this, and early on in my career, I held them accountable because I said, this is the way it's going to be, and that's the way it needs to be. And that there's no joy and happiness in that for anybody, to be quite honest with you. So the first thing I do is I allow them to hold me accountable. I expect them to hold me accountable. If I'm going to provide you with criticism and I'm going to provide you with feedback and I'm going to ask you to do things differently, you should be able to ask me questions and you should be able to challenge what I do as well. And I'm proud to say we have coaches who do that. We have players who do that. And I may not always like it in the moment, but I always know in the end, if they're doing that, then there's not an absence of trust. If you're in an organization where you can't hold people accountable and they can't hold you accountable, you're missing a really important element, and that element is trust. And you have to trust each other. And trust is something that grows, and you build it over time. You build it through experiences. You build it in the off season. For our kids, when you get up at 5:40 a.m. and you show up for a morning weightlifting on January 3rd, after a long break, you start establishing and building trust there. When things don't go well and there's criticism flying, you're 2-2, and there's people being critical, and they want to point the finger because people just want to assign blame immediately in today's society. As a leader, I'm going to take that blame. I'm going to wear it. And then I'm going to ask my team privately and my coaches privately, hey, what can you have done better? What can you grow and reflect on? So I think for me, it's all about being open and allowing people to have those same conversations with me. And our captains, we've already picked 5 of them for next year, and they know that, hey, throughout the offseason, if something's not going the way you want it to, or you don't agree with something that's going on in our program, it is your responsibility to come to me as the head football coach and tell me, because it's not my team, it's our team. And so I think we're really good at that in Avon, and we're not afraid to have hard, difficult conversations in our program.
So what's your relationship with Eric? And how does Eric Frombach hold the athletic director at Avon? For those that don't know, I know you mentioned it once already. How does he hold you accountable?
Yeah, so Eric is someone who obviously is our athletic director, and he's also a friend. He's a good friend of mine, and I've been through a lot of personal things in my life where Eric has been there every step of the way. He probably knows more about me than anybody. But they always say there's a saying out there, Bob, where they say, don't accept criticism from someone you wouldn't seek advice from. And Eric's someone who I seek advice from often. Like, I value him that much. And I think our coaches in this district value him that much. And he really, in the end, just wants to provide great learning experiences for our athletes. And our athletic program, in the 15 years I've been here, it's quite remarkable, the transformation that's undergone through his leadership. And he does a lot of stuff with FCA and faith-based things that have helped me grow as a person. And he doesn't expect you to be perfect. He knows that we're all human and we're going to make mistakes and we're going to screw up. But when you do, you have to fess up and you fix it. You have to make things right. And so for me personally, Eric is my truth teller. He's the guy who can come and see me and tell me the truth. And he recognizes my personality and how I respond to that. He knows that I may not be well received initially, but if you give me time to digest it, I will certainly get back with you and acknowledge things that have to get better and change. So I'm just blessed to have a guy like him as an athletic director that I do seek advice from, because when you seek advice from people, again, you're willing to accept criticism and feedback. And all of us need somebody in our lives, and multiple people in our lives who can actually challenge you and help you grow in that manner.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. I really do. Core values, right? What would you list as your core values?
In our program, it's accountability and trust. Those are two of the core values that we're going to demand from all of our athletes and our coaches. And, when you're a senior at Avon, there's some non-negotiables. There's things you're expected to do in the off season. And if I have to convince you to do that year 3 or 4 into our program, it's probably not going to work out for you, because our team, not me, but our seniors and our expectations of our assistant coaches and our program demand that our seniors lead by example. And so if you're not going to be at a workout, you need to make sure you're texting your coach and you're letting him know why. Why aren't you there? And talk to us about what we can do to help you if you're struggling with something. And we have to trust that you're going to show up and you're going to do all the right things with your teammates. So that stuff is established throughout multiple years in our program, but our seniors lead that. My patience level with a sophomore is a lot greater than it is with a senior in the program. And we always talk about these 4 core values in Avon football, which is hit, hustle, know your assignment, and care about your teammates. If you ask a second grader in Avon, what do you have to do to play football for Avon? They'll say hit, hustle, know your assignment, and care about your teammates. But when you really break that down, what does that mean? Hitting is physical and mental toughness. Physical toughness is established in the weight room in the off season, okay? But the mental toughness is established by going through adverse situations together as a team. So we're going to put kids in challenging adverse situations, and we're going to challenge them and get them to work their way through that. We've never had a team in my 15 years in Avon quit on me in the middle of a game, and they won't. They're too invested and they're too mentally tough to ever do that. We'll lose games, but we will never stop playing hard. So that's something we're proud of. The second one, hustle, is relentless effort. And we love this one because we say it requires no athletic ability to hustle, to play with relentless effort, to play harder than your opponent. You don't have to be the best player out there. You don't have to be the most talented player to be the hardest working one. And boy, isn't that some characteristic that you would want every kid to develop, because it's going to translate into college and to their career and to being a father. And all those things are going to matter as you do that. And then the competitive excellence is to know your assignment. We demand a lot from our players. We demand that they do a lot of film study. We demand that they study the game of football. They attend camps and they learn and they grow in their roles. But we have a bunch of people on our staff who are great teachers, and we are competitively excellent. I don't know that anybody does more film study than our kids and our coaches. And then the last thing was the care about your teammates, and that's that uncommon bond and that brotherhood that every great team has. The truth is, Bob, at the end of the day, if you want to play hard and with relentless effort because you don't want to let down your teammates and you don't want to let down your coaches, you've got it now. Your culture is on point, because the greatest teams don't play for themselves. They play for their teammates, and they play for their coaches, and they play for their community and their school. And I think we do that really well in Avon, and we've had a lot of success because of that.
Yeah, so it's really interesting for me to drive through Avon, because it seems like everybody has Avon Eagle pride, right? The colors, everybody wears the colors, everybody wears the Eagle emblem, and it's kind of cool to drive through that or move through that community and see that the community is invested. So the fact that you talk about the kids are, playing for the community, I see that. I see that, and that's a pretty cool piece.
Well, I appreciate that. I always talk about trying to get over that hump, right, and get back to a state final game. And for a long time, the narrative was the private versus parochial, and we put that narrative to bed in Avon. We really have. We understand that it's just, why talk about it, because it doesn't matter. I mean, is there an advantage for private schools versus public schools? Yeah, in some cases there is. There's we're going to play with the kids who live in this community next year, and some of our opponents can go out and bring some kids in that are juniors and seniors who were playing somewhere else last year. But to play for Avon, you have to live in Avon. But we don't talk about why that's detrimental to us. We talk about what advantages does that give us. And the fact that these kids have grown up together since first grade, second grade, third grade, they played youth football together, they were friends in fourth grade. That brotherhood and that bond and the culture that we have, and then the Friday night experience in Avon where this community comes out in droves to support them, that's pretty cool. Like, we have something really special that they don't have. So when we stop talking about the excuses and you stop making excuses and you just say, what can we do to make what we have better, and what do we have that they don't, the results have improved. And so we're going to keep doing that, and we're going to keep being proud of what we do. But I'm telling you, and I mean this, there's no job out there I'd rather have than the Avon High School football job, or the HR job that I have, because I love this community and I love the people I get to work with every day.
So here's an interesting point, right? So Avon, you guys have had great success in football. Every sport at Avon has great success. And there are several private schools around. And it seems like, at least from my vantage point, that the kids stay at Avon High School. They don't get pulled away to one of those other schools, which have great athletic teams as well. So is that a pride thing? Is that the whole cultural change that started, I don't know, 15 years ago when you started, or was that something that happened before you? Talk about that. Talk about that and how you recruit, if you do, your kids to stay at Avon.
Yeah, we absolutely have to recruit our kids to stay here. But you recruit them by what you do every single day. We recruit these kids because we have a tremendous teaching staff. We have a tremendous support staff. Our school district academically is one of the top 5% in the entire state. So we're really proud of that. You're going to get a top-notch education here. I have players who leave my program, they go play at Yale, they go play at Johns Hopkins, they go play at Northwestern. And then those are guys that are playing football and attending these prestigious schools, not to mention all the others who go out there and do amazing things. So the proof's in the pudding. I've been here 15 years, and now I've got kids that are 28, 29, 30 years old, and you see the success they're having. And is it all related to Avon local schools and Avon football? No. They have great parents, but it takes a village. And so, what you do is we market what you do in your district. If I'm going to keep kids at Avon and stop them from going somewhere else, I've got to sit down with kids and market why what we have going on here is so special. There's nobody who develops players better than we do. We have a strength coach, Jared Cicchetti. He's assisted by Jason Oakes and John Gunnell and Jeremy Goldeisen. And they not only have transformed Avon football, but all of our athletic programs through our strength and conditioning program. And they're not just doing it through lifting. It's not like, hey, come in and lift. It's a structured, organized plan with nutritional components attached to it. And so nobody develops players better than we do. And then I like to believe that brotherhood and that bond, one of the best things in Avon is if you make it to the Final Four, you get to practice on Thanksgiving morning. And we've started a tradition where you can come in and we have a Thanksgiving breakfast and we invite back all of the alumni who have ever played here. And that is honestly my favorite event. More fun than any football game I've ever played in, to see these kids come back and just visit with their coaches and their former teammates and break bread together and just be thankful for the experiences we had. So it's not a hard sell, Bob. Like we've got something really special going on. But my suggestion and advice to people would be like, make what you have so special. Stop the narrative of complaining about what you don't have and what others have and how it's unfair, and just start talking about what you do have, and then continue to grow it every single day. Because I think people in our community know what we have and that it's special. Are there some people that will never appreciate it as much as they should? Yeah, they exist. But that's okay. We're going to continue to grow this thing and make it the best experience for kids.
How many people showed up this Thanksgiving? I heard it was huge.
It was huge, and I'm not sure the total amount, Bob, but there was a lot of people in that gym, and it's been that way every year. That last year, because we had a shortened season because of the pandemic, we did make it to the Final Four, but the season was over before, so we didn't have a chance to do that. So we invited that team back, and we recognized them as well because they didn't have the opportunity to have that. But if you talk to our kids, like what is probably the most important event in Avon football, it's Thanksgiving breakfast and Thanksgiving practice. So that it's just really special because it's just the brotherhood and the bonds that are created that we get to celebrate.
All right. So let me ask you this, and this is going to be a little bit more personal. So personal growth plan. I believe that everybody should have a plan for personal growth. And just about everybody that I talk to, if I do interviews, I ask them, what's your plan for personal growth? If I've got somebody that wants to hire me as a coach for them, a life coach or a business coach, I say, well, what's your plan for personal growth? Show me that you're looking to improve every day. So I'm going to ask you, what's your plan for personal growth?
Yeah, that's where I think that 7-8 years ago, I really helped change me as a person. And Mike Lobb was our former superintendent who really helped me in that area. And now we have Ben Hodge, our current superintendent, who's tremendous, and he's a relational guy. But for me, personal growth comes from honestly the day-to-day interactions with others and becoming the listener that I told you I had to become. Because if you're constantly barking out orders and directing others on what to do and you fail to listen, you lose sight of what people need. And as someone who's a leader in our district as an HR director, I want to give our folks what they need to succeed. I'm blessed. I know that we have 500 employees in Avon and we have great people, but if I'm not listening, I can't figure out a better way to give them what they need. So my personal growth plan is every year as a coach and as an HR director, I sit down and I talk about individual things for myself. Like, what do I want to get better at this year? And then I'm very focused on that. And usually what I put on a paper that I want to get better at is because of feedback that I've received from others who had enough trust with me to share with me what I do well and what I need to do better. And sometimes you don't have to have someone directly tell you what you need to do better. If you're self-aware and you look around, you can figure that out. So that's very important. And then as an HR director and as a football coach, I also look at it organizationally as the Avon Local Schools, and I look at it organizationally as our football program. And then what are my goals for the entire organization? And you have to have a growth plan for that. How do you get other people on board and get them to have their own personal growth plan as well, and to buy into some of our bigger goals and our team goals. And so you just keep planting seeds, you water it, you're supportive. And, for me, I think Eric Frombach would tell you that every year I have new ideas and new things that I come to him with. And he just looks at me like, are you crazy? And I said, you hired me to be your football coach. The day I stop coming to you and asking for more and needing more for our kids is the day you should ask someone else to take over this job, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to continue to look for ways to get better. So mine is just to be a good listener and then to sit down individually and establish those goals.
So you've talked a lot about goal setting. Do you have a specific style of goal setting? Do you follow a process? How do you identify goals and then set in place milestones to achieve those goals?
Yeah, so I wish I could give you something super creative, but we all have these things that we carry around, and you can go to your notes page in there, and if you go into mine, you're going to see my organizational goals as HR director, and those are some goals I have for us as an organization, and then some personal goals where I need to get better to make this a better place, and then as a coach, I have the same thing. But the process, however, is when you're talking about personal goals, you should be using feedback, like I said earlier, to do that. But when you're talking about organizational goals, that's something our assistant superintendent, our superintendent, our teachers, our union presidents, all of your interactions and conversations with them need to go into those organizational goals. And as a coach, I want to talk to the seniors. Hey, what went well? What didn't go well? What do we want to change for next year? We're in the middle of those meetings with our coaches right now as well. So it's a matter of putting them on paper and then revisiting them and looking at them once a week, and then creating individual weekly goals where I sit down and say, hey, I need to do a better job this week of getting into these buildings and meeting with our new teachers to ask for feedback and ask them what they need. So it's not a formal process, but it's something that's worked.
Yeah, that's and it's if you look to improve, you're going to find where you need to set goals at, right? If you look to grow, you're going to find that space. All right.
I mentioned to you earlier, I just wanted to say that when I was at Indian Valley in Southeast, I was a shell of the coach I am today. And I wish for those kids' sakes that I could have been more intentional about things and been better. But the truth is, Bob, when you talk about growth, I'm talking to you today in 2022. If I'm blessed enough to do this for another 5 years, I hope 5 years from now, I look back on this moment in time and say, man, I was doing some of those people a disservice because I continued to grow and get better.
Yeah, so you take it personal, right? You take it personal, and in that, yeah, that's a great attribute, and a real solid focus. Okay, so Life of Leadership is the name of the podcast. So I would be doing everybody a disservice if I didn't ask this question: what is your plan for developing a leadership-oriented culture?
Yeah. The first step of that, we talked about it earlier, is empowerment. For me, I want people in our organization and in my program to be empowered. I want to empower them and create something where, and I mean this, like Avon football is bigger than any one individual. We talk about that all the time, Bob, like all the time. And what that means is we've had coaches come and go. We've had players get injured, and we lost them in the middle of the season. And it has to be a next man up mentality. And I believe this wholeheartedly. If I left tomorrow and I was no longer at Avon, our football program would carry on. We would carry on, and we wouldn't miss a beat, because we've created this thing where everybody's been empowered, and we've built a program. And a program is built by a bunch of individuals collectively doing their role and being stars in their role. Our Avon local school district is the same way. We just lost our superintendent. We're still as strong today as we were when he was here. But he built it that same way, to where it was bigger than just him. Our Board of Education empowers others and builds it where it's bigger than any individual. So it starts with empowerment and getting people to do that. As a football coach, we try to create servant leadership opportunities all the time for our players. Those look like, we have this thing called the Eagle Advantage in Avon, where our players are going to come in and, yeah, it's the middle of football season. It's the middle of two-a-days, but we're going to bring some food in, and we're going to bring in guest speakers, and we're going to address topics like mental health issues. We're going to address topics like teen dating. We're going to bring up topics like social media and how to navigate that. And we're going to have conversations with kids on some things that could really trip them up if they're not educated on. And then we have a mentoring program going on right now. An assistant coach, Russ Mead, heads that up for me. And he takes our players and puts them in the lives of some of our elementary students who may be struggling and need a big brother in their life, which we're really, really proud of. Community service, I think that we're probably the first program to get called a lot of times to do something if somebody needs something in the community. We've served at the homeless shelter. We've gone to Cleveland and helped prepare homes that they were buying up and giving to some homeless folks that were moving in. But we do a lot of community service. And what I'm most proud of, Bob, is that when I send out that message for volunteers, we're never at a shortage for volunteers. Our kids are looking for ways to do that. And then one of the coolest things we do is our youth camps. We offer in Avon 4 youth camps a year. It's a great fundraiser for our program. We get to work with our kids that are in kindergarten through 8th grade. But our players get down there, and they're seen as role models now, and they're seen as leaders, and these kids look up to them, and they have to accept, that responsibility of being someone who's a role model in these kids' lives now. So that's really cool. And then, one of the biggest things we pride ourselves on is creating that family atmosphere where our parents of our players and everyone else is welcome to be part of that too. So there's so many leadership opportunities in our program that, it's hard to leave our program and not be a better leader. And some of our best leaders, by the way, Bob, are guys that don't even play on Friday nights. I can tell you story after story about players who have come through our program who have become captains and never played a meaningful down on a Friday night because they weren't the best player, but they were the best leader. And most of those best leaders are servant leaders.
So define that for me. Servant leadership. What does that mean? What does that mean to you?
For me, servant leaders are the ones who are constantly looking for ways to bring value to other people's lives. They're looking for ways to serve others. We had a captain one year. His name was Chad Botson. He was our third string quarterback. And Chad Botson was one of the greatest servant leaders we ever had. And he found a way in his role as third string quarterback to make every kid on our team feel important, feel special, feel valued. That's what he did. And that's hard to do sometimes in an ego-driven society where, everybody's just all about the individual accolades or taking a team sport and wanting to celebrate their individual successes. But he was always looking for ways to bring value to other people's lives. A quarterback we had a year ago, Nico Pappas, now he was our starting quarterback, but what made him special wasn't his ability just on the field. It was the same thing. Grabbing kids after practice. Hey, how you doing? I noticed you're not yourself. Those are just the real true servant leaders. When you get one, you can't help but notice it. And those are just a couple examples. We've had so many great ones through Avon. But it's just serving others and looking for opportunity after opportunity to bring value and joy to someone else's life.
Okay. Again, another thing for you from a personal growth standpoint, who do you look to when you want to learn and grow as a coach?
That's an interesting question because I've already mentioned Eric Frombach, our athletic director, because I seek advice from him. So I certainly want feedback from him. Larry Karras, who's in the College Football Hall of Fame, is one of the winningest coaches in college football history. Is a guy that I don't talk to all the time, but he will always answer my phone calls. And inevitably, a couple times throughout the year, I always have to pick up the phone and bounce ideas off of him. My number one guy was my father, Bob Elder, but I lost him 4 years ago. He was my best friend and somebody who I leaned on a great deal. My brothers are two people that, I really lean on for advice. So it's not just one person, but certainly, you got to have people in your corner who you feel will be there for you and give you the advice you need.
And again, it comes down to trust, right? It comes down to that whole idea. You got to trust them, right?
You got to. That's one of the major dysfunctions of a team is a team that doesn't have trust. I was going to work out the other day, and I was talking to an individual who was coaching at a school that I won't mention, but he was asking me about our season, and we were talking about it. I said, how did you guys do? And he said, well, we struggled towards the end because our seniors, they just wasn't a good senior class. It wasn't a class that had good leaders in it. And some of those guys quit on us at the very end. And I immediately, Bob, wanted to look at this person and say, well, then you got to own that. Like, you got to own that. Like, if these kids quit on each other and quit on you, then your culture's broken. And so immediately he was basically saying these kids didn't lead appropriately. If that happened in Avon, and it could in Might, the first thing we're going to do is look inward and say, why is that happening? Because, like I mentioned, the biggest thing I'm proud of is not our win-loss record. It's that our kids never stop playing hard. Regardless of circumstances, they're not going to stop playing hard because they love each other, they care about each other, and they don't want to let each other down. So that takes, we don't have enough time to talk about all the things that go into building that. But to me, if you don't have that, you got to continue talking to people, creating new ideas and ways to make that happen.
So when you started at Avon, what was the culture like, and how hard was it to grow the culture, or did you have to work hard to grow the culture? So just talk to us a little bit about how it was when you got there, and in how you made the culture what it is today.
When I got to Avon, there's always great people here. There's great teachers, there's great coaches, there was great players. I think the thing that I was able to do when I got here with the help of Eric Frombach and Chad Kaufman and Christina Buller is that we were able to use football to change the culture of accountability in an entire school. Like, you were expected to walk in and be respectful to your teachers. You were expected to walk in and have great work ethic. You were expected to show up and do things. But I'll tell you a funny story, Bob. When I first got the job, Bob Ridley at Perry had created these Dirty Dozen program, something that's been here in Avon for 15 years. And it's in the summer. It's basically 15 workouts that are early in the morning. I'm talking like 6 a.m., now 5:40 a.m., where we demanded that kids get out of bed early and you do a workout. Well, that started at Perry. I inherited that from Bob Ridley. And I remember coming to Avon with Bill Fishley, who was going to be joining me as an assistant coach, who played for me at Perry, and saying, man, what if we show up this first day and nobody's there? Like, what if they don't come? But remember, I told you at Perry, like, I didn't have a clear vision that I had coming into Avon. Like, there was going to be non-negotiables that my coaches were going to have to do X, Y, and Z if they wanted to coach, things that I didn't establish right away at Perry. So I was excited, but I was nervous. But that first day I showed up, Bob, they were all there. They were there at 6 a.m. and they worked their tail off. And so I think all they really needed was more of a structure and a vision of where we were going. And then the other thing I would tell you is that I remember our starting quarterback at the time. Maybe it was our starting quarterback, but he was wearing another school's shirt, a parochial school in the area shirt. And his explanation to me was, I said, what are you doing wearing that? Like, where's your Avon stuff? And his explanation was, well, we don't play them. They're Division I and we're Division blah, blah, blah. And I said, we are never going to wear that here. We're going to wear our stuff. And I don't understand, Coach, why is that a big deal? And it wasn't only a big deal to me, because what I realized at that time is we needed to create an image of what we were doing and get our kids to be proud of where they were from. And it wasn't taking away from that school. It's a great school. That's fine. But we just needed to create more pride in Avon. And so it became an Avon proud thing. And we started preaching and talking every single year about all the blessings we have as a district and as a community and as a program. And over time, it grew and grew and grew to what it is today. And hopefully, again, 5 years from now, it'll be even bigger and better.
Okay. So the word failure, can you define that word failure for me and what failure is or means?
Yeah. I failed at a lot of things in my life, and it's not getting the desired results you want, but more importantly, it doesn't just stop there. Failure is not getting the desired results you want and then failing to learn from that. Like, there's this old saying out there that you don't lose, you learn. And I believe that wholeheartedly. You can fail, you can lose a game, but not, you lost the game, but you didn't fail because you took it as an opportunity to grow. You face an adverse circumstance, and what you ended up doing through that circumstance is you got better because of that. Our failure against our rivals this year was the best thing that happened to us. Now, I'm saying that with a caveat, because I got to see these folks at Chipotle and I got to see these folks at the ice cream places and everywhere, and they're going to have a little smile on their face for me. So, it's a healthy rivalry, and it's something that I'm not happy about because they won the game. But we didn't fail that day. We lost. But what we did is we took that loss, we reflected on it. We knew that immediately people would want to assign blame. The fingers would start getting pointed, and people would want someone to be responsible for it. And as a team, it just galvanized us. We grew from that. So we didn't fail that day. We just lost. And so failure to me is not getting the desired outcome you want, but then in turn, not taking the lesson. It's a layup. It's there for you, but you don't want it. And so for me, that's true failure, is when you don't get your desired result and you don't grow or learn from the experience. As long as you grow and learn from the experience, then you can let yourself off the hook. You didn't fail. It just didn't go the way you wanted it in that moment. And I've had a lot of events in my life where it didn't go the way I wanted it. But over time, I became better as a result of that. And so that's not failure.
Yeah, it's interesting. You said sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. So in my my bookcase upstairs, my mentor, John Maxwell wrote a book. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And it's so true, right? We have a difficult time in our society to admit failure. And so we tend to make excuses for why we fail rather than creating a structure of how do I not allow this to happen again, right? So it's almost like we're embarrassed or ashamed to fail. Yet, I look at it this way. I take a look at Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and these two individuals have more wealth combined than probably 90% of the world. Yet they've probably failed more than anybody else. I've read their biographies, and they have failed. They've failed a lot more than I have, but they've achieved a lot more than I have too, because they failed. Another book by John Maxwell, they failed forward, right? Failing often, failing fast, and failing forward. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this with our players all the time, and the truth is, anybody can lead when things are going well. Like that's easy. Anybody can lead when things are going well, but who's going to be able to lead when things aren't going well? When things, are not going according to plan. When things are hitting you on a personal level, and then you're carrying that with you onto the field, and there's things going on. That in adverse situations, who are you, and how do you respond? And to me, those are what define great leaders. And in our locker room, which we're redoing for next year, we're redoing our locker room currently. But when I redid it 8 years ago, we put it on there, and one of the things on the floor as you leave our coaches' offices, what you see on film is what you're coaching, and that's getting our guys to be accountable for what we're doing. We're not going to blame our players. What we see on film is what we're coaching. If they're not playing hard, it's our fault. If we're not tackling well, then it's our fault. And is it always your fault? Probably not. But if you make it your fault, then you're gonna get better and do that. But the other thing is, when you walk into our offices, how will you handle adversity, with a big question mark? And so to me, we talk about that in our program till nauseum. I mean, our players are probably sick of hearing it, but who will you be in the toughest moments of a game? And you want a bunch of guys when it's getting hard and it's getting really difficult. You want those guys to look you in the eyes and say, "Follow me. I got you. I got this." And I'm proud to say we have a lot of coaches who are that way, and our players are the same way. Like, when it's not going well, I actually get excited because I got a front row seat to see how we're going to respond and what we're going to do. And it doesn't mean we always win the game, but man, it's inspiring to watch some of these kids. And you do that because of the relationships and the love and wanting to do it for each other. But more importantly, because they know how to handle adversity. And that will transcend into the rest of their lives. We've all had tremendous adversity we've been faced with on personal levels. And the first step is acknowledging, like you said, your failures and then failing forward. I like that.
All right, so give me a minute here while I thank our sponsors and give a commercial for next week's podcast. But when I come back to you, I'm going to ask for parting thoughts. So get Coach Mike Elder's wisdom, and I'm going to give you a parting thought. And so give you a couple minutes to think about that. While Coach Elder thinks about that, I just want to thank once again BCT Alarms. This is a locally owned family business. Brian Jankowski has been a friend of mine for 3 or 4 years now. He's a great community person. He supports he supports individuals. He supports businesses. He supports athletic teams. He's a great person that if you have a security issue in your home, or you want to see what the upgrades are, give them a call, 877-215-0763. And then WOBL AM 1320 and 107.7 FM. Gold Country, they're the country classics. WDLW AM 1380 and 98.9 FM. Rock and roll oldies on the Cool Cat. And they've got basketball this year on Friday nights. This Friday, WOBL will have Wellington versus Brookside. And by the way, Brookside's my alma mater. And WDLW will have Amherst versus Elyria. And speaking of Brookside, next week, I'm going to be interviewing Mike Cook. Mike Cook is the superintendent of schools at the Sheffield Lake school system. And the reason why I'm bringing Mike on is because he's got a unique situation. He is the superintendent of a school that engages with two communities. So Sheffield Lake and Sheffield Village, two separate different communities that come together in one school system. And what exactly does Mike Cook need to do from a leadership standpoint to engage with the students, the parents, and the teachers to build a leadership quality school? So, Coach Elder, what are your parting thoughts for us?
Well, you built that up. I feel a lot of pressure in this question. But you know what, Bob? First off, thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for the sponsors for doing this. I can't wait to watch the leaders that go on here. And I guess my parting thoughts would be this. We live in a world today, especially with social media, where unfortunately there's a lot of negativity spread out there. And people like to take shots at each other, especially behind keyboards or when they're not out there. And what I would say to people is that, I've had some things and events happen in my life that have created some frustration and anger and hostility, things that I'm mad about. But I learned when I let all that stuff go and you just honestly let it go, and you're willing to just look at things from a positive perspective in this world and learn from other people, life's a lot better. I'm not a judgmental person. I don't judge other people. I think that everybody has a story. Everybody has struggles. There's a lot of mental health issues going on out there, and you never know what someone's going through. And you certainly don't know all the circumstances surrounding it. So if you choose kind and you're just good to people, you can make an impact on this world. And if you're a coach watching this, run your program through a positive lens. Make it all about celebrating yourself and growing young men and young women, because the power of the word coach is real. And I'm blessed to be the coach at Avon, and I get to do it with some really tremendous kids and coaches. And I wouldn't want to be doing anything else.
Coach Elder, you hit it out of the park for the entire interview, and then you put a huge exclamation point on it with your parting thoughts. So thanks so much. Really appreciate you being on. I look forward to meeting you in person because we haven't done that yet. I'm really proud to call you friend and to be associated with you and the success that you've had at Avon. So good luck moving forward. And like I said, I can't wait to meet you in person.
I thank you, Bob. It's going to be awesome stuff, and I appreciate you doing this for all of us.
All righty.